Think you need scorching sun all day long for a bountiful harvest? That's actually one of the biggest garden myths out there. What if I told you some of your favourite veggies not only survive in the shade, but actually thrive? Today, we're unlocking the secrets of 5 shade-loving plants that will transform that shady corner of your garden into a source of fresh, delicious produce. Stick around and you'll discover how to get a great harvest where you thought nothing could grow. Let's quickly cover why everyone's so hung up on sunshine. It all comes down to photosynthesis. Plants use sunlight as energy to grow and produce fruit. For things like tomatoes, peppers, or cucumbers, it's absolutely essential. Without 6 to 8 hours of direct sun, you can pretty much forget about a good harvest. That's why so many beginner gardeners get discouraged if their yard is shaded by a house, fence, or big trees. They think they're stuck with just lawn and flowers. But the truth is, shade isn't a curse. It's just a different set of conditions. You just need to choose the right plants. Okay, so our first shady garden superstar is definitely going to surprise you. We tend to think all leafy greens crave sunshine, but lettuce actually thrives in partial shade. It doesn't just grow well, it grows better than in full sun. Let's dive into why. It seems logical that green leaves need bright light for photosynthesis, right? And that's true initially for seed germination and seedling development. But once the lettuce hits its active growth phase, especially when the weather gets hot, direct sunlight becomes its worst enemy. For delicate lettuce, scorching rays and high temperatures are a major stressor. As a defense mechanism, the plant kicks in. It decides its life is threatened and it needs to reproduce ASAP. This is called bolting. The lettuce abruptly stops producing those delicious leaves and puts all its energy into forming a flower stalk. Once that happens, the harvest is pretty much over. The leaves change instantly. They become tough, fibrous, and develop a strong, unpleasant bitterness. You won't want to eat them. And this whole sad process can happen in just a few days in full sun. Now picture this instead. You plant your lettuce in light shade, maybe under a young apple tree, or by the east-facing wall of your house, where it only gets morning sun. The soil stays cooler and moister longer. The plant feels comfy and safe. It doesn't have to fight to survive. In these ideal conditions, the lettuce isn't in a rush. It steadily produces a lush rosette of tender, crispy leaves week after week. They're juicy, slightly sweet, and absolutely not bitter. You can regularly harvest the outer leaves for salads, and the plant will keep growing from the centre, providing you with fresh greens for a long time. Loose leaf varieties especially love the shade, like Lolla Rossa, Oakleaf, or Azart. You might want to specify a more common variety here, like black-seeded Simpson. So remember, for lettuce, shade isn't a compromise. It's a necessity for a high-quality, long-lasting harvest. It's a true king of the shady garden. Next on our list is a vegetable that many gardeners consider a bit fussy: broccoli. Its reputation for being difficult to grow often scares beginners away. But honestly, the secret to successfully growing broccoli isn't complicated fertilizers. It's simply keeping it cool. Broccoli's biggest enemy is heat. When the plant is exposed to the scorching midday sun, especially during the hottest part of summer, it gets really stressed. Like lettuce, broccoli is a cruciferous vegetable, genetically programmed to reproduce quickly under harsh conditions. For broccoli, heat is a major red flag. So, what happens in the blazing sun? The plant panics and tries to form a head and send up flower shoots as quickly as possible. As a result, the head isn't dense and firm, but loose and separated into individual buds. Before you can even enjoy it, it turns yellow and flowers, becoming totally inedible. It's a real nightmare for any gardener hoping for a juicy harvest. That's where shade comes to the rescue. Light, dappled shade, perhaps from fruit trees or taller plants nearby, works wonders. It shields the broccoli from overheating during the hottest hours of the day. In this cool, comfortable environment, the broccoli doesn't rush. It develops steadily, slowly, and correctly. Instead of frantically forming loose heads, the plant systematically builds mass, creating that perfect, dense, heavy, emerald green head we all love. Growing broccoli in partial shade can significantly extend the harvest period and produce larger, higher quality heads. The ideal spot for broccoli is where it gets plenty of morning sun but is shaded during the hottest part of the afternoon. So don't be intimidated by this vegetable. Just give it a little coolness, and it will reward you with a fantastic, hassle-free harvest. Let's talk about the ultimate garden speedster, the veggie for impatient gardeners, the radish. Seems simple enough, right? Plant, water and harvest in 3 to 4 weeks. But many of us end up disappointed. We get radishes that are tough, woody, hollow inside, and so spicy they're inedible. Sound familiar? Well, in 99% of cases, the culprit is heat and lack of water. Radishes are thirsty and love the cold. They only grow juicy and plump when they're cool and comfortable. But what happens in a sunny garden bed? The soil dries out fast, even if you water regularly. The plant is constantly stressed by the heat. As a result, like lettuce, it rushes to flower, or bolt. All the nutrients go to the flower stalk instead of the root. The radish stops growing, its flesh gets tough, and hollows develop. And that sharp burning taste, that's a defense mechanism. The plant produces mustard oils to protect itself from pest under stress. The solution once again is shade. Light shade is perfect for radishes. It keeps the soil from drying out too quickly, keeping precious moisture near the roots. It shields delicate leaves from the scorching sun. In those cooler conditions, radishes thrive. They're not stressed, so they steadily focus on growing a good root. They grow quickly and evenly, turning out perfectly round or elongated, depending on the variety. The flesh stays tender, juicy, crisp, and develops that pleasant, slightly peppery, but not burning flavour. No hollows and no woodiness. The best approach is to plant radishes under the cover of taller plants. For example, between rows of tomatoes or cucumbers that are just starting to grow. By the time they get big enough to create dense shade, you'll have harvested several batches of perfect radishes. So, if you want juicy, sweet radishes, find the coolest spot in your garden. Okay, here's the English translation. Aiming for a natural conversational tone, perfect for narration. Spinach is our fourth champion for the shady garden, and its story is a lot like lettuce. It's another cool weather crop that just hates the heat. We grow it for those juicy, vitamin-packed leaves. So, as gardeners, our goal is to get it to focus on growing those leaves and nothing else. But what happens when you plant spinach out in the blazing summer sun? You probably guessed it. The sun and high temperatures trigger a defense mechanism. The plant interprets that as a sign that things are getting rough and it's time to reproduce. So it immediately shifts into flowering mode. It stops producing new leaves in that nice rosette and starts sending up a long flower stalk instead. There's no turning back at this point. The leaves that are there become small, tough, and lose their flavour. They might even get a little bitter. So instead of weeks of harvest, you get a few days, and then you're left with a flowering plant that isn't much use. That's why growing spinach in shade or partial shade isn't just an option, it's the best strategy. The cooler temperatures and filtered light create the perfect environment. In those conditions, spinach feels safe and sound. It doesn't need to rush into reproduction. Instead, it puts all its energy into what we want, developing a big, lush rosette of large, dark green, succulent leaves. You can keep harvesting the outer leaves, and it will keep producing new ones from the centre. So, by planting spinach in a cool, shady spot, you're guaranteeing yourself a steady supply of this incredibly healthy green for weeks. This means you can enjoy fresh spinach all summer, and even preserve some for later. Freeze it or can it. Remember, when it comes to spinach, shade means a long, bountiful harvest. Okay, and finally, our fifth pick, and this one might surprise you. It's peas. Now the situation here is a little different compared to leafy greens. Unlike lettuce or spinach, peas absolutely thrive in sunshine. They need it for proper flowering and pod development. So why are they on this list, you might ask? Well, the secret lies in their relationship with heat. Peas love the sun, but they can't stand intense heat. When temperatures climb above 77 degrees, 25 degrees, and they're baking in direct sunlight, they start to suffer. The pollen on the flowers becomes sterile, meaning it can't pollinate. Flowers just drop off without producing any pods. The pods that do manage to form are affected by the heat. The peas inside become small, tough, starchy, and lose their sweetness. Hot weather drastically shortens the pea harvest. That's why, especially in warmer climates or during hot summer months, peas do best in partial shade, but not constant shade. We're talking about dynamic shade. What does that mean? The ideal spot is one where the peas get plenty of morning sun, which they need for photosynthesis and flowering. But during the hottest part of the afternoon, say from noon to 4 p.m, the pea patch should be sheltered by light shade cast by trees, buildings, or taller plants like corn. This morning sun, afternoon shade routine creates the perfect environment for peas. They get enough light to grow, but they're protected from the harmful heat. This helps them avoid stress and pollen sterilization. As a result, the plants flower longer, produce many more pods, and the peas inside them grow large, juicy, and incredibly sweet. You don't just get a harvest, you significantly extend the harvest period. So, if you live in a region with hot summers and want to enjoy sweet green peas for as long as possible, don't be afraid to plant them in light shade. It won't hurt your yield. In fact, it will make it more abundant and higher quality. Okay, so here's the real game changer. The big secret isn't just that these veggies tolerate shade, it's that they thrive in it. Shade is their superpower, their edge. For leafy greens like lettuce and spinach, shade prevents them from bolting early and becoming bitter. For broccoli and radishes, it's a lifesaver against the heat, allowing them to produce a quality harvest. You're not fighting the shade, you're embracing it as an ally. Instead of struggling to grow tomatoes where they're miserable, you plant broccoli where it's going to be perfectly happy. That shift in perspective is what completely transforms your garden. Hopefully, you'll now look at those shady spots in your yard in a whole new light. They're not problem areas, they're potential plots for the most delicious vegetables. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, give it a like and subscribe for more gardening tips and tricks. What veggies have you successfully grown in the shade? Share your experiences in the comments below. Let's help each other out.